You're watching TSN, the Sports Network. A World Series shocker as Cincinnati gives the defending champs a red October to remember. Should the designated hitter go? They think so. And Evander Holyfield, first in line for Buster Douglas's heavyweight crown. Sports Page with Pat Marsden, Bill Waters, and Bob McCown. And now here's the Sports Page host, John Wells.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Page. It is nice to welcome Bob McCown of CJCL Radio for his first visit to the page. Bob is Bill Waters' regular sparring partner on radio. Any hints, Bob, on how to out-talk Bill Waters?
No problem. Just reach across and push his mic off.
Yeah, but you're not in control here.
Yeah, watch this. Just grab his tie and
don't
give it a
cut the
little
tie,
yank.
yeah.
So you brought reinforcements, Wilbur.
No, well, it's nice to have Bob along. He's a knowledgeable sports person, and that makes two of us on the panel.
Yeah, and he's also Wilbur's boss. So
no, that's right. And Bill Stevenson, of course, who is my partner on radio, will be sitting in that very chair next week. I do want to say this much, though, having listened to both Bob and Wilbur on the radio, it's a pleasure to welcome Bob. No, I would never say anything mean about McCown, because I think he does a good job. Who will be in this seat next week?
we're working on that. Negotiations are underway. Right now, let's move along to page one, the baseball finale and the surprise series. Cincinnati outplayed heavily favored Oakland to win the Fall Classic in 4 games. The hunt for a Reds October started with pitcher Jose Rijo, who won twice and retired the last 20 batters he faced in Game 4. Rijo was named the series MVP. Red-hot outfielder Billy Hatcher paced the Cincinnati offense. Hatcher set a series record with 7 consecutive hits and hit .750 in the 4-game sweep. The favorite A's underachieved. 20-game winner Dave Stewart lost twice. Jose Canseco, baseball's highest-paid player, had just 1 hit in 12 at-bats and was benched in Game 4. Patrick, first the Canseco story. Long-term effects from this, do you think?
Well, this is what people fail to realize, that Jose is obviously going to end up in Toronto, because no, but I mean, that's the kind of player that the Blue Jays have an affinity toward, and I think it'd be a terrific outfield. We could have Junior Felix in right field. We could put Jose in center field, have George Bell in left field, and then Wilbur could have a nervous breakdown.
Wilbur, let's talk Canseco first and his little rift with the manager.
Well, I don't know how big a rift it is. I think they've got one of the best managers in baseball in La Russa, and if the tail is about to wag the dog, then they better get rid of Canseco, and as Pat's pointed out, perfect setting. He and George could decide who was going to be the designated hitter, and then they could tell Cito. Everything would go well from there, I would think. I don't know that the rift is that serious a matter. I think La Russa will just tell him who's running the shop, and that'll be it.
Let's get on to the series. History will obviously be kind to this edition of the Cincinnati Reds. Bob?
Well, I don't think it's a big surprise. I mean, you know, if you watch baseball 162 days a year, as I think most of us do off and on, miss a few games here and there, you know that anybody can beat anybody in any given series. And this Cincinnati ball club was an exceptional ball club in the first half of the season. They didn't play well in the last half, but they got it together against Pittsburgh and held on against Oakland. I mean, I don't think it was that big a surprise. The only surprise was they won in 4 straight. I mean, that's always a surprise.
Well, we all had 4 on this panel, did we not?
No, I had 4, and originally I was A's all the way, and then I had a discussion on radio with another pal of mine.
You changed it, I remember that.
Yeah, because Beeston was going with the A's. Mr. Beeston, the president of the Blue Jays, called the A's in 5. I had to go with the Reds. I had to switch.
And there was another reason when he found out that the A's actually played in Oakland now and not Philadelphia. He said,
when I found out La Russa had taken over for Connie Mack, that was the end of it.
I thought that maybe you changed when it went to Love Cincinnati.
This was actually on the Tuesday morning at the start of the series that I switched up, but
actually,
I felt good about it.
The truth of the matter is, you thought Oakland was an absolute lock. I told you to beware of that starting pitching and the difference in the National League and the American League. And I said, if they get to the Nasty Boys, it's game 7.
And I said they'll never get to the Nasty Boys, assuming that the King Kong Bundy hitters would at least tap a couple out of the park. And what did they do? McGuire, Canseco, Henderson went for a walk.
Well, now, wait a minute. Henderson hit 330-something. I mean, that's not shabby.
Well, it's not too
I mean,
shabby.
it's higher
But he
than
wasn't
his
the dominant
season
player he was when he eliminated my Blue Jays.
Well, no, but then again, he didn't have Ernie Witt trying to throw him out.
All right, quick break here. Here's what fans in Vancouver had to say about the surprise series.
Being from Canada, you don't get that close to baseball as a lot of Americans might, but yeah, I mean, from everything I can read and understand, it certainly shocked everybody up here that I know who is into baseball.
I guess, you know, with Canseco not doing anything and Stewart not pitching right, it's what happens, big surprise.
That's good to see. I think Cincinnati's a much better team as teams go. Oakland, I think they're a bunch of overpaid guys that, you know, were a little bit overconfident. So good for Cincinnati. I think it resembles the 2 series ago when the Dodgers beat Oakland. It was the same, basically the same thing.
Bob, I read yesterday that Dennis Eckersley says his Oakland A's choked in this series.
Sure they did, absolutely. I mean, they choked because they lost 4 straight, not because they lost the series. I think Cincinnati was as good a team as Oakland, on paper and off paper. The only thing Cincinnati didn't have was the experience. I mean, this has been a very good ball club in Cincinnati for 5 years, and they might have been in the World Series had it not been for Pete Rose.
It at least ends the dynasty talk. The we're a dynasty Oakland A's type chatter is now out the window. They have effectively blown 2 series, L.A. and Cincinnati. Whether or not Cincinnati was as good a team, and they obviously were, they're a lot better. L.A. seemed to steal it from them, but they aren't a dynasty. They're regular season front runners. They fold their tent come October, not unlike some other teams I know.
All right, who do you make, though, the favorite, though, next year?
Well, Oakland, of course.
Oakland and Cincinnati have to be the favorites going into next year.
L.A.'s going to win the National League West, so forget it, Pat.
With what? With
mark
strawberry?
this tape? No, I mean, I just like one of these things that he says that are so outrageous. And I do want to say this. He has convinced me with his performance here today that he truly is, as many of us have maintained, a legend in his own mind. I mean, he is.
Thank you, thank you,
No,
thank you.
but I mean, why would you say that Oakland was an overrated ball club? I mean, they won over 100 games.
Why?
By far the best team in the American
I explained
League.
that. Are you having trouble with your hearing?
Well,
do you read lips? I said they have blown 2 series, one against L.A. and one against Cincinnati.
Do you not
that
understand
makes them
that in
extraordinarily
baseball you could win 50 games a year and face a club that wins 100, as Bob says, and end up losing a series? You're not supposed to lose 4 straight.
Not if you consider yourself a dynasty, not unlike yourself. You're having a few problems right now adjusting to spinning the platters, and that's something that you didn't think would happen, but even the greatest slip a little, and that's what happens. Don't consider yourself a legend when you can't be, and that's what Oakland have done.
This happened earlier than last week, which will make it difficult for you to recall. But do you not remember the year that the Toronto Blue Jays, who were a horrid baseball team, beat the Yankees, Bob? What was it? 17-1, or I mean, it was an astronomical
19-3, I think.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah. See, I knew if I asked him, he'd have it.
Roy Howell had a bunch of RBIs.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. Recall it well.
So now,
I think the game was played either in New York or Toronto as well.
Good boy.
Good thinking.
But how do you explain that?
How do you explain it? That's the game. You've already...
well, that's what McCown told you.
No.
15 minutes ago, and you're still beating around the bush.
No, I'm not beating around. I'm saying that the A's considered themselves a dynasty, and let's establish the fact that they aren't anymore. If you're a dynasty, you are what the old Oakland A's were. You win 3 straight. You do things that lead people to believe that you might have a team that performs when the performance sign goes up. The Oakland A's aren't that way, Pat. Not unlike yourself. That's what I was just telling you.
Final word on this to Bob. What do the Blue Jays take from this, the fact that Oakland can be beaten?
I don't think anything. The Blue Jays had a better record against Oakland this year than Oakland had against them. The Blue Jays proved that they can beat Oakland, and you know, as we said all year, watching this Blue Jay team flounder around in the middle of the pack and chasing Boston, if they got to the postseason, they could beat Oakland, and anybody could beat Oakland on a given day in a given series. Remember, they lost, what, 4 out of 5 last year in the American League Championship Series, but Oakland played their butts off in that series. They probably couldn't have played any better than they played against the Blue Jays.
And Ricky Henderson was superlative, Bob. He carried them.
Well, he had like 750 or something ridiculous against them. That's not going to happen.
Could I just jump in here?
No, I can't. Gotta go.
Time
Page 2 coming up. More baseball talk. The DH rule is under fire. We'll be back.
I remember my first weekend away. I saved for half the summer, but hey, it was my money, and it still is.
Kings Bowling on TSN.